The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Real Estate Revealed with Randy Barcella, Sunday mornings starting at 8.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. NBC News, New York Times, trying to sound the warning siren this week on what 2020 could look like and perhaps how deceptively strong Trump is electorally, even though he's polarizing politically. New York Times piece by Nate Cohn, one of the sabermetricians over there. Trump's electoral college edge could grow in 2020, rewarding a polarizing campaign. And essentially, it's the same sort of analysis that you got from NBC News, David Wasserman. Trump could lose by 5 million votes and still win in 2020. It's about the disparity he had if you just look at New York and California. He lost those two states by about a combined 5 million votes, 2.9 million overall, less than Hillary Clinton. But, the Electoral College makes it complicated for Democrats, as Wasserman points out. Democrats point out they swept Senate and governor's races, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin in 2018, flipped 2 House seats in Michigan, 4 in Pennsylvania. But Trump could lose Michigan and Pennsylvania and still win the Electoral College, so long as he carries every other state he won in 16.
Okay.
And Wisconsin.
Yeah, what about
Wisco? It didn't provide a clear verdict. I mean, Scott Walker running for seemingly his 12th term. It was only his 3rd, but he'd been so many elections there. It lost by less than a percentage point.
Yeah.
So sort of a split decision there. And, the local dynamics matter in state and local races, of course. So it's just very interesting because I look at some of what's coming there. Oh, and by the way, Frank Bruni's piece, it's not by the numbers, but it's by the messaging. Frank Bruni, the New York Times, how Democrats defeat Trump. He's very worried, clearly, if you read this piece, about this dynamic of Trump versus the Socialist Spice Girls. He doesn't like it. Don't play along. Racism must be called out. A demagogue must be branded as such. I'm not sure if he's talking about Trump. Well, I know he's talking about Trump, but you could...
That could relate to the Spice Girls.
Exactly. However, move on. Maybe say it once, loud and clear, say it twice, then move on, writes Frank Bruni. Don't let him define all Democrats in terms of the squad.
Oh, but we're all part of the squad. Here's Tlaib yesterday.
We need bold action, folks. And I know what's happening out there. There's all of this young women, and it's beyond just the 4 of us. The squad is all of you. And I can tell you, you are all the squad. Trust me. If you support equity, you support justice, you are one of us.
Well, they may want to make the contest in 2020 race-driven. Frank Bruni, don't play along. He doesn't want it. And let me suggest Frank Bruni has many intellectual infirmities, but nothing on the order of those suffered by the Socialist Spice Girls, at least when it comes to electoral politics. So, thinking about all that, then I read this piece by our friend John Fund over at National Review. Progressives are convinced that Trump is toast. Maybe... Well, why don't we let him make his argument? Yeah. And which progressives are we talking about? You got to be specific in these times. There's a lot of division on the left. For more on this, let's talk to our friend John Fund, who's a columnist for National Review. John, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thanks, Dan.
All right. So progressives are convinced that Trump is toast. Are you talking just about those 4 congresswomen of the moment, or the larger field, or the entire unified Democrat Party?
Well, I dropped by the Netroots Nation gathering of progressive activists.
Oh, yeah.
There were about 3,000 of them. I talked to as many as I could. All of them were convinced that Trump is toast. And they were so overwhelmingly convinced, I decided that they may be deluding themselves.
Mm. And
Well, what are they doing about it though? Because a lot of my socialist and liberal friends keep saying, "Well, Trump's not going to win in 2020." I said, "All right, well, what are you doing? Are you contributing to a campaign? What Democratic candidate are you standing behind? Did you hear any, solidarity behind one certain candidate that they want to take out Trump?"
No, they're still shopping around, Amy. And Elizabeth Warren was there. She's very popular. Kamala Harris got some votes. There were a few Betoites. But everybody, of course, agrees that Joe Biden is, historically ancient and needs to be put on the shelf.
Really?
And so, with respect to Trump, though, and the spat, which was sort of happening in real time with that Netroots convention, what do they think about the squad, as Nancy Pelosi calls them, and the spat between Pelosi, who's hardly old guard in the sense of her politics, at least, maybe in the sense of her uh, the Machiavellian aspect of her, but Pelosi versus the squad, where do they come down?
Well, progressive activists are absolutely convinced that diversity is the future of the Democratic Party and of the country, and that Nancy Pelosi is a transitional figure. So they're happy to have the squad be the face of the Democratic Party. I think what they forget is this. This is going to be a race in 2020 between what I call mean versus crazy. Donald Trump is mean. There's no denying that. And he certainly is interested in polarizing the electorate. The reaction that the left has to that, though, is to be driven absolutely into Trump derangement syndrome and to move further and further to the left. In other words, the crazy part of the left wing. And the more they do that, the more they are doing the exact thing that Donald Trump wants, which is to present a choice between two unpalatable alternatives, mean versus crazy. And I'll tell you, the average independent, inattentive, moderate, whatever kind of voter you want, is going to look at mean versus crazy and say, I'll take mean, it's safer.
Yeah, and with at the convention too, it's just sort of an interesting 3,000 person focus group here. Uh, the um, the issue of impeachment not really being talked about much by the presidential candidates, being talked about a lot by the congressional, the House Democrats who want to see it happen. But is that something, if they think that Trump is toast, that they're even concerned about? They want to beat him at the ballot box, don't they?
Well, look, let's be honest. If you actually did get impeachment through, you get Mike Pence and a honeymoon. Did you really want to run against Mike Pence, Mr. Milquetoast? That doesn't set up the kind of contrast they want. I think that they realize that impeachment drives support and attention to their cause, but ultimately, of course, they don't want that. Just as smart Republicans didn't really want Bill Clinton impeached, and frankly, that ended up with electing George W. Bush because George W. Bush promised to bring honor and integrity back to the Oval Office.
Do the people that you spoke with at Netroots Nation, did they think President Trump is racist? And what did they say about the spat between him and the squad?
Oh, they didn't think he was racist. They know he's racist.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not even an issue. In fact, they're so certain of it, they're willing to attack almost anyone who supports him or speaks favorably of him as a fellow racist. And I think that kind of condescending political correctness, that smug belief that they're morally superior, is going to hurt them. Because ultimately, much of what Trump does is objectionable. Let's not pretend otherwise. But racist is a very strong term, and if you attach racism to everything that Trump and his supporters think, you're going to get Trump people riled up and out and voting in the polls.
What about some of the incidents of violence of late, most notably Antifa and Andy No in Portland? Any discussion about having to separate ourselves from people running around in riot gear, beating up reporters?
Absolutely no mention of Antifa whatsoever. Obviously, they still talk about Charlottesville. The difference between Antifa and Charlottesville, of course, is that one person did die in Charlottesville. That obviously makes it a very serious situation. But Antifa is running around with no criticism. And unlike the white supremacists in Charlottesville, they haven't been shut down or prosecuted. They're running around almost with impunity. And the left is happy to have them do that as long as they don't show up and make it too obvious at their events.
Are the leftists, the progressives that you spoke with, are they interested at all in trying to appeal to moderates?
What's a moderate?
Yeah.
Moderate.
There you go. There's
The moderate
Like
is
Joe
Nancy
Biden.
Pelosi.
Hey,
The moderate is Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, a moderate is a enemy inside the perimeter of the Netroots nation, isn't it?
Well, let's put it this way. I'm glad I only showed up for a couple of hours because every time I was spotted as being someone who shows up on cable TV, I was looked at first suspiciously, and then they started to follow me around. I felt that it was time to go after about 4 hours.
Yeah, you were lucky
Really?
they didn't make you do a walk of atonement out of that convention hall. Very, very lucky. He is John Fund, columnist for National Review. Check out his latest piece, Progressives Are Convinced Trump is Toast. He did yeoman's work going behind enemy lines to get the opinions of the Netroots progressives. John, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.